Hello everyone, and welcome back to Marketing Roundtable. I'm your host, Tatiana Knie-Smith, and I work in design.
I'm Rachel Rhodes. I work in organic social.
I'm Brandon Jones. I work in paid media, and I'm also the producer of the podcast.
Yay, Brandon!
Woo, Brandon's with
Special
us.
episode coming in today.
And the reason for that is this episode is more of a dedicated case study to a social project that we worked on. Rachel and I were very entrenched in it, so we get a little bit of an outside perspective from Brandon here. And the case study that we're looking at is our experimental Instagram account, Not Your Average Marketer.
Right. And it is an Instagram account. It isn't like a brand that's across multiple platforms. But despite, just living on one social media platform, there's a touch of paid. There's an element of boosting that was going on. There's creative that's involved. So it was this big project that we worked on. We had a lot of worked, past tense. We're still currently working on it. So we'll cover the background for those that don't follow us on social and may not know what the journey has looked like so far, as well as some early discoveries and important lessons we've learned along the way.
And I know that we have an earlier episode covering social in general. I believe I was actually on that episode as well.
Yes.
So if you are also interested in checking that out, that is an episode that we've had in the past.
Yeah. Without further ado, let's take it back to the conception of Not Your Average Marketer. What was going on?
So as an agency, we have both our clients and our own internal affairs to work on, right? And when I had first joined the team, Tatiana was already working on the internal social media effort, if you want to talk to that at all.
Yeah, sure. So Rachel joined the team right as our previous social media manager was leaving. Our social presence was more so that kind of something is there when somebody searches you. Just mostly culture, posting some fun things when we had time to. There wasn't a growth strategy for our accounts.
Right, and then when I joined the team, we came up with a strategy where we would be creating for Instagram as the hero, meaning that we were going to pay the most attention to Instagram's algorithm. We were going to be creating mainly video content, but also static image content for Instagram first, and then we would distribute that content to the other platforms. So we've kind of had this focus on Instagram from the beginning, really, and that's not to say that other platforms are less important. Other platforms are more important for different reasons. That's just how we decided to go about our content creation.
What made sense for BrainDo, we wanted to cover 4 main topics, which was culture, obviously still keeping culture. That's most of what we were doing. That's work events, team photos, things like that. Thought leadership, which is, showing ourselves as experts. Industry, which is relevant news in the space, and then trends, which is hitting on social media trends to try and get some views.
Yeah,
self-explanatory.
Right. Yeah, so those were the 4 content pillars that we were working under, but the trends in industry specifically, because the thought leadership is mostly blog posts and podcasts, there isn't much creative freedom there outside of the products we've already made. But trends and industry, we're starting to lean into humor-based content, specifically marketing humor, obviously because we work in marketing, we're multidisciplined, so.
And we have a great sense of humor, so it just made sense.
I mean, it did well enough for us, well enough that we had accidentally cultivated 2 separate audiences.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely remember being involved in the beginning days of that. The Real Coworkers of Philadelphia was always a very fun bit to do.
Yes. There was this wave of reality TV skits, people pretending to be on reality TV, and we were we can do that for The Office.
Yeah.
And that was a major catalyst, and that was our first series, right? Yeah. Where we made iterations on something that had performed well.
Yeah,
and
that was so fun.
It was so fun, and it got us some new followers, which again, we started kind of cultivating these 2 separate audience groups. So, half of the people came to us for the agency life, the thought leadership, what we're up to, what our team culture looks like. Then the other half of people were here for the humor and the skit-based content. And we got to a point where early last fall, October specifically was the first month where I noticed we were actually in the red for followers. And obviously, that's a huge red flag. So looking back at the analytics, there were 2 specific points in time where we had dipped low and lost like multiple followers at these 2 separate dips. One was a thought leadership post. The other was a sketch. And that was when it was like crystal clear to me, like, oh no, we have a fragmented audience and we need to do something about this, because clearly the people that follow us are unhappy with this mix of content, the mix of the content pillars.
Yeah. And our like follower growth had kind of slowed down too, right? Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like a long coming up like moment of clarity.
Mm-hmm. So in seeing this and it being so obvious at this point, we decided to niche back down and split our content into 2 separate accounts, and that was the birth of Not Your Average Marketer.
That makes sense, because it sounds like after a while, the 2 audiences just didn't mix well.
No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily, like if I was a viewer on social media and I followed someone for entertainment purposes, like a fun sketch, I wouldn't necessarily be interested in like very in-depth, like technical thought leadership then as well. They're 2 different things.
So you can follow someone for like a generally funny marketing agency bit, and then the next day they're posting something in depth about web analytics, and you're like, I have no idea what this is. Is this the same account that I followed yesterday because I liked that sketch? Like, yeah, I get it.
So with that being said, could you please explain to the audience niching down?
Yeah, absolutely. So you hear niching down all the time, everywhere, a lot when talking about social media. It's a really good strategy because it's meant to help you optimize your content for search. So there are 3 like different ways you can do it. You can just be strictly education, like camera gear reviews. So you're posting like how-to videos, and it's very easy to look up keywords that you can make content for. You can be like education, entertainment, like you make these camera review videos and you also film yourself traveling using like testing out the different equipment. So you can enjoy like a sick shot of someone longboarding, but it's like, wow, like this drone is really cool too. And then there's just like purely entertainment. But with personal brands, like if you're an individual creator, like the sky's the limit. You can pick whatever niche you want. It's whatever you have the most personal interest or expertise in. A brand, a company, their niche is decided for them. You can't just be a skincare company and start posting about cars. Like, that's not why people are following you. Unless you're something like really hybrid or specific, that would be cool. But in general, your niche is chosen for you.
I was gonna be like moisturizer for Corvette men.
I think that's
that
really
was a bad joke, right? But it's funny. It's funny.
I think it's funny because my granddad is a Corvette man.
Yeah, they're very specific type of fans. Corvettes.
Anyway.
That could be a possibility in my future. Who knows?
I hope so.
Would you buy the moisturizer?
If, I see a good sale, if
For
the paid
Corvette
media
men?
person on that end does a good job and reels me in, then...
Yeah, this container of lotion really goes with my Corvette really well. I feel seen. I feel spoken to.
Black Friday, maybe you'll be a fan then.
So with brands or companies where the niche is already predetermined, what you can niche down in is the tone and kind of voice of the content you're posting. So Disney, everyone knows, very family friendly. Everything's going to be super PC on Disney. Slim Jim, you visit their social medias and it feels like some inside joke that you missed on Reddit 2 years ago. And there's like catching up on lore to be done. That's a very specific choice that they made. And then there's like United Airlines, like they're very professional, somewhat corporate, but like they'll throw in a meme and they work with influencers, actually corporate Natalie, who's in the marketing humor, not marketing, but general work humor space. So they'll collaborate with other people that kind of cross into different niches, but they still have their defined brand voice, brand tone. So we had like a very professional tone going on and then also this comedic tone. So when we say like we had to niche back down, it's not just like thought leadership, but also thought leadership plus that professional tone. And then humor content with a slightly edgier tone. Put them in 2 different spaces. So that's what we mean when we say niche down on social media. So we launched Not Your Average Marketer, but it wasn't just a vehicle for us to like post funny content. It's also a sandbox for experimentation, testing some things that we wouldn't necessarily test on our main agency, like client-facing account.
Right. There's definitely a big opportunity there, kind of like when you're talking about personal brands versus like company brands. I mean, a lot of influencer or personal brands also choose to sell products, but you're not ultimately like bottom line, selling a product, you're a human. And making this humor account, we weren't, trying to sell our marketing capabilities. We got to like come at content making from like a person first perspective and grow an account and a following just based off making like content people would enjoy and representing ourselves as individuals versus like, here's a consultancy, here's a marketing company. It's just, all of that is kind of the subtext.
Yeah, well, literally on the different accounts, like BrainDo is a business account on Instagram, and Not Your Average Marketer is a creator account. And being a creator account, we get access to more like audios than a business account, because business accounts can't touch copyright items. A creator account can. Yeah. So there is more freedom in getting to express that individual side of it outside of just being like a company.
Yeah. So with that kind of background in place, I guess like if we get into like the execution. So the kickoff phase, we're working on like the visual assets that were involved. Obviously there's like a profile picture. Although Instagram itself, there's actually not that many like branding assets in your Instagram account as far as just the profile. It's just the one photo. With Facebook, you have like a cover photo and things, but
but there are other choices to make, like which font, like maybe you avoid like the super scripty font on Instagram.
And then we got into some of the native feature aspects. That it was something because it's social specific, and we were making like a content creator account. We want it to be a little less polished, a little more just a person using Instagram. So we wanted to use the native editing features. So like picking which fonts or which like color schemes kind of lined up. Making sure we were still like following best practices in accordance with, with the aspects we had. But instead of like doing that, instead of like importing a like brand font through Premiere and then using it. So that we talked about more in the creative brief where we outlined like kind of what the videos would look like what's the lighting, what's the setup, are they really polished studio filmed videos like this, or are they more a person with an iPhone like filming themselves? That is obviously it was the latter. So that was kind of a new take on the creative brief and visual assets for us.
And it's cool because some components that you just broke down, like you chose the latter to like for somebody to hold an iPhone rather than it be a full production, almost comes across to me from an outside party as more relatable in content in general. Which I can definitely see that being another gap. If you're a business looking for more leadership, you want a full production as compared to some work humor. Sometimes a full production is a little too much for something that might be a trending audio that lasts 15 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the creative brief that we developed, where there are considerations like that to be had. Now, I, as like the social media strategist, I don't know why I did that. Like, that's literally what I am.
What you are.
You're a stage strategist.
I worked on an executive summary, and what I did was I developed 2 personas. Like, there's always a million more personas you can develop, but we started with 2 personas. We did some brand guidelines, which are basic, but also include some more specific things like, are you going to touch politics? Are you going to touch religion? For some brands, like, those are important things. Like, they could be very integral to the brand. For us, it's like, no, we're not trying to touch those things. So those are important to establish when you're starting an account literally from the ground and building up. Also establishing, like, the tone and the brand voice, and the content pillars, how we're going to use different formats for different items. Like, it's defined in our executive summary that memes are most likely always going to be either a singular static image or a carousel post. So just really defining as many things as you can. It started as a 1-page document. I think it's 12 pages right now, and there's still always more to add and iterate on because a strategy can change, and we've already had it change. We're more than 12 weeks in. I don't remember the exact number of weeks right now. It should be almost, I just touched the mic.
15 maybe, 16 weeks.
It's probably about 15 weeks in. Anyway, regardless, the executive
our
summary,
week count.
The executive summary. We also included like who's responsible for what? Like who's
Yeah.
responsible for like internal documentation? What tools are we using? Like we have it listed out. Like we edit either natively or on Premiere Pro. So it's just a huge living, breathing document that is really important to have. But we also distilled the creative brief and the executive summary into an overview deck that we presented to our boss, who gets to play like, you know, he's a team member, but also like the client in this situation. So that we present it to him as if we would present to a client.
Right. And also, I don't think you mentioned, but important to include, like in the executive summary, we had like the goal, like what our goal was, what like the kind of cadence was, like the general strategy, tactical strategy to the account.
Yeah.
For growth. Yeah.
We had like inner and outer network defined. We had like core versus outer audience defined. Like you can get really deep in an executive summary.
So you mentioned the content strategy, nailing down the branding, everything else that goes into the work stream that is constantly evolving. And from a client perspective, what else would you deliver?
Good question. We've done smaller deliverables like a hashtag build before, but something I think that's really, really important for any social media project, whether you're starting a new account or going into one that's pre-established, is some competitive analysis, or I believe I called it the landscape analysis, because, you know, just because someone's in the same space as you doesn't mean they're like a competitor. They could just be like peers, you know. And I think landscape analyses, I think they're really fun. And usually a client will have like a laundry list of people that they consider either like true competitors or peers. But we kind of had to go out into the wild and find those ourselves. It wasn't that difficult. I mean, work humor is like a huge segment of the internet right now, especially since working from home. So it wasn't that difficult. But what I did, how we structured our competitive research, was by growth phase. So we had people that were at kind of the beginning of their growth journey. They were trying to get up off the ground. So that was build mode. We called that build mode. Smaller accounts, they're still gaining traction. We had peak growth. These are people that like, maybe they're at a point where they quit their full-time job and they're just doing content. Like they're getting brand deals, like they're getting recognition, they're collaborating with other accounts. Like they're in a period where they've like reached it, like they've done it. And then we have post-growth, which a lot of people don't even consider, but that is a place where you can land. And there was an episode of the Think Media podcast, I think a while ago, like maybe over a year ago, featuring Shailene Johnson, who is in post-growth. And she said on that podcast, I'll never forget, she was like, I don't care if I gain one more follower for the rest of my life. Because she built her community. She had people that were dedicated. And she was able to branch them to a newsletter, to other business streams, to coaching services. So she built the community on social media and said, this is it, this is all I need. And she was able to translate them into other business streams, which is ultimately the goal for any brand or business on social media, is to get them off social media onto your website, following some other trail, right? So that was, we didn't look at a ton of people, but it was a really good place to start. And I recommend anyone do competitive research. And it's not just a one-time thing, because someone may cross from like peak into post-growth. Like they've moved on to another stream. You might want to check in, see what they're doing. There might be another like trend afoot in your industry. And we actually we'll talk more about it later, but we did circle back and do more competitive research later for a very specific reason.
Yeah. And also, like, I know this happened for us, but like as we continued just like engaging, we found more accounts so that we could like learn from along the way. So you could revisit and add those in for comparison. Yeah.
And when we were looking at these competitors too, just some things that you want to kind of keep track of, their content pillars. How are they similar or different from yours? Is there a gap in the content they're posting that you can fill in? Correlations between follower growth and viral content. I used a site called Not Just Analytics for this, but it's in Italian, so you have to translate it, which like Google can do so easily. It's more Italian lately. It used to be less Italian. But I really like them, and you can just search up an Instagram handle for free and it can give you some basic information. Also searching top hashtags that they use, what kind of voice or tone they're implementing, and how they're engaging with their audience. There are some very edgy brands that we've come across, and they have like this really sarcastic audience, and that's just who gravitates towards them and their type of humor. We can't enter, not that we would even want to, like enter that level of sarcasm and edginess, but it is interesting to see how your brand voice and tone correlates into what you're seeing in user engagement.
To me, the coolest example that you just mentioned is the person who got to the point where they said, I really don't need any more followers because all the followers that I have, it sounds like are quality over quantity, which is very important. That just reminds me from a marketing perspective of upper funnel leading to lower funnel, you know? And I think that's very cool that niching down really taps into that ultimately.
Yeah, and you know, the bottom of not your average marketer's funnel would hopefully be someone hopping over and checking out BrainDo.
Yeah.
But for her, it was, you know, bringing people over to her coaching, which, again, she was like, I don't need anyone else. Like, I recognize that I'm at a really comfortable place, and isn't that just the dream?
Yeah. Also, I mean, there is a limit to growth eventually.
Yeah.
I imagine, you know, she was quite followed and successful.
I think she's also in her 50s.
Yeah,
so
like,
good for her.
Yeah.
Like, she's good. But yeah, like, you will eventually, I mean, yeah, like, reach a point of growth where you're probably not gonna see like staggering increases.
Life cycle.
Unless your like content is like very broad in general, I guess.
Yeah.
This podcast is powered by BrainDo, a digital marketing agency that not only provides a diverse mix of digital services, but offers guidance, experience, and true partnership to bring your business to the next level.
This episode was about social media and design, respectively, but we offer expertise in a variety of other marketing fields like data analytics, SEO, just to name a few, and we have worked with businesses on every level, from local operations to Fortune 500 companies across a variety of industries.
No matter what step in the process you're at, we're here for you, from wireframes to paid campaigns.
BrainDo, experts in everything digital. Reach out today to learn more about how we can help your business grow.
To help get the account off the ground, well, something that was major that I don't think we've talked about yet is that we're doing a daily posting cadence.
Yes, that was part of the executive summary
Yeah.
too, like establishing frequency.
Major like uptick in content development on our end, and making sure we could support that, and getting kind of enough under our belt to like keep producing that. So something we did at the beginning to get off the ground was we went back and selected some content from BrainDo's existing page that we were going to repost, stuff that aligned with the new like goals, tone, etc.
Like the Real Coworkers series, that made the jump.
Yeah, that performed well, that we thought would help establish the new account while giving us a chance to get ahead on some more content, and or just getting the most out of our content we had already created.
Right.
We were very into, like reusing assets where appropriate.
Yeah, and that was something unique that we were able to do. Probably not most brand new social media profiles will be in that position. So I would, in that case, recommend kind of really bulking up on content first. Like, don't start and make content as you go. Like, make sure you have a reservoir first and then start posting. We were in a position where luckily we did have this content that we could use from. So the first 6 weeks, we set up the first milestone, the first 6-week period. It was a mix of this pre-existing content and then new content that we were testing, trends, memes, scripted series, work from home, and office life. Those were the content pillars we were working in. There's a ton of crossover between them sometimes, like sometimes office life is also part of a scripted series like Real Coworkers, etc. But those were like our 5 pillars that we were operating in. And our goals for the first 6 weeks were 1,000 profile visits, 500 followers, and we really would love if one reel broke 100,000 plays. So some other things we did to help jumpstart growth, getting right out the gate here. Tatiana mentioned we had a daily posting cadence. So we were posting once a day. Occasionally, sometimes we were posting more than once a day. That is recommended to kind of really jumpstart the algorithm, like picking up on your content. It's not recommended to post like 3 or 4 times a day. Like, that's too much. You might actually start to get punished a little bit. But occasionally, more than once a day.
Yeah, and also really important at the beginning, we ended up doing it because we weren't seeing like follower conversion, and one of our theories for that was like we didn't have enough of a backlog to look legitimate.
That's right.
And so we definitely push quick enough to at least kind of get that first section filled, and then we slowed down again. I think that did help.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
And posting daily just makes sense, especially with this, always tapping into like trends that are coming up every single day, all the time. Being able to tap into that plethora of just constant content is very aligned, I feel like, with this kind of strategy.
Yeah, and especially looking at competitive analysis, we have competitors that are posting daily content. So they're shown in feeds more. Users are watching them more. So it is like, if that's where the competition is, we kind of need to also meet them there if we want to gain traction.
I think it's very interesting that you get punished if you post too much per day, though.
Yeah, I think the only platform that doesn't do that is Twitter. So you can make one post. People have reported seeing this. I've never seen this specifically in any account I've run, but you can post one post and it'll get like, let's say 1,000 impressions. And then the next day you post 4 posts and they all get like 200 to 300 impressions each. The algorithm's kind of splitting between, they're not all going to get 4,000 automatically.
Yeah, I guess that's less like punishment and more just like you're splitting your, they're like Darwinism, they're competing against each other now for your audience, versus like only having one that's distributed.
Right. I guess punishment isn't the right word so much as there isn't guaranteed payoff. In fact, you might see less of a payoff or like totally equal payoff for like such an increase in work.
Yeah.
Definitely the Darwining your content against each other.
But it's tough. Also, and it's also changed. Instagram used to be like super against posting more than once a day. Now they seem to be fine with it. I think LinkedIn recommends anywhere from like twice a week to twice a day. Like there could be like a huge range of what's like best practice. It just really depends on your brand and the content output that you're comfortable maintaining.
Yeah, because I feel like with our other account, that doesn't make sense at all.
Well, we also have clients and other, projects to be attending to. So we only had a certain amount of production hours. And to your point, it makes much more sense to shift those production hours to a marketing humor account, and do daily posts, and then go from 3 posts a week to 2 posts a week on the other account. Because also like this podcast feeds the BrainDo account. So with our finite hours, it just made sense to pour them into Not Your Average Marketer. Another thing we did to help jumpstart growth was use the collab post feature, that's literally what it's called, to cross-post the content to my personal account or Tatiana's personal account. And that was used as a bridge to help bring our inner network over to follow.
And with the BrainDo account.
In the beginning, because we do want some level of separation between the two, because we're playing, heightened versions of ourselves. We're playing characters on Not Your Average Marketer, whereas on BrainDo, like, we are the experts. But so we did these collab posts to bring over our inner network, and we had like people from high school that we haven't spoken to in a long time. We had like personal friends. Your hairdresser followed us. So again, that's a really unique position to be in, because we are the cast and crew.
Right.
So because we are the face of the account, like, they're going to come follow us, as opposed to like, I would never post like one of my random clients and be like, follow me over here, because they're not following and seeing me, you know?
Yeah.
So it is, well, there are also plenty of brands where their founder is the face of the brand. And in that scenario, it could be totally appropriate to collab post.
Yeah. Another thing we did for the account was we did a boosting budget. We considered like different kind of paid strategies that like you consulted with in the beginning.
Yep.
And then we went forward with like a boosting specific strategy.
Yeah, I remember consulting with you in the initial phases just to kind of get a good groundwork laid out, but I remember just being hands off for the most part right after that. So
right. Some of that exploration was like different things we could do, and we ultimately decided like boosting was the way to go, and that is actually like very easy to do within the native platforms, and there's like less of a there's just less control and stuff to it like you would on the paid team. So that was also something that like Rachel and I got to learn, was more about boosting and like tracking that and just exploring that on our end to like support organic growth specifically, which is just a little bit of a different approach than you know driving sales to a landing page, which is most often what we're doing on paid campaigns.
It definitely depends on the client and the paid campaign, but this was a scenario that was a great opportunity to kind of explore in a territory that hasn't been touched before by this company with starting this new social media account.
Yeah.
So
we love to be kind of cross-discipline to a certain extent, like have overlap here and there, just because you're specializing in one thing, like social media, but you can also speak about things that touch it, like boosting specifically. Yeah. Maybe once it gets a little bit further, like a campaign on social, that's a little bit less out of your range. Yeah,
that's like fully another discipline at that point. Right.
But yeah, we do like to have it, like, you know, I can speak some to social because I work on so much social stuff with you. Just like trying to make sure we're like all together. That's part of like the collaboration and teamwork aspect that we really like to like hone in on at BrainDo.
Yeah.
So that's been a kind of cool experience for us.
Yeah. And it was like a modest budget. So we got to experiment with, I mean, there are only so many options with a boosting budget. It's like spend per day, how many days, and the audience, and that's basically it. So it was really good for us and really fun to experiment with that.
And boosting has been a kind of major part of our growth, honestly.
Yes.
We've seen.
Yes.
It's been very helpful in gaining followers.
Yes.
Getting people on the page. And definitely the more we've done it, I would say we've learned quite a bit from where we started.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally boost number 2. We found a major efficiency.
Yeah.
Like, we started with a certain number of audiences, and they were hyper-specific.
Yeah,
and
it was too narrow.
Right, we zoned out from that, and it was immediately so much more efficient.
Right.
So almost from the get-go, we were learning, and even still, we're learning.
Right, and part of that was also learning that Instagram's boosting like reach estimate was like way larger than it actually is. So we were like, oh yeah, we can niche down and still reach all these people. And then it was like, no, that's not the case actually.
Yeah. But to just emphasize, I would recommend for brand new Instagram accounts, if you really just need to start getting people on the page, followers, I do recommend a boosting strategy. That did genuinely help us a lot in getting followers and just eyes on the account.
Yeah.
So with that being said, what KPIs did you find yourself looking at with the boosting of this account to kind of track how much success that you were getting from specifically that boost?
So in the beginning, we were taking screenshots of everything. So we were tracking profile visits specifically.
Yeah, like that was our goal when you select the goal.
Yeah. Right. There's like you can link out to a page, to shop, whatever. We wanted people to land on the profile. So goal was profile visits. When we were gaining our first handfuls of followers, the notifications were so specific to like you would see exactly like, okay, this person liked this post, liked that post, followed. And you could see like, oh, that's the post we boosted. So they must have found us on this post. They came to the account. They also liked this post, and then they followed us. Like we could see that trail very clearly. Yeah. But as we grew, it just became impossible to keep up with the notifications.
Yeah.
And Reels, like the native insights on Instagram, boosting or otherwise, they don't show you exactly where followers came from. So profile visits is really all we have to lean on.
Yeah, and the ultimate goal is the followers, but as you said, like we can't exactly track that, like count for count. Obviously, we're going to assume there's a certain point of drop-off after the profile visit. Like, not every single profile visit equals a follower, clearly. But based off, what we could actually track, profile visits, and then kind of overall follower growth, even though we don't know exactly where those followers came from, for sure.
You would have to kind of insinuate that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would say that boosting is very good in the scenario of driving traffic to the page.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
For new accounts. Like, I'm not sure what Rare Beauty would get from boosting unless they had just like a giant budget. But for new accounts that still need that kickstart for growth, like it was a tremendous like help.
And the investment wasn't huge.
No, it wasn't.
It was very I don't know, reachable to
Yeah.
like a small business, I would say. Maybe not boosting like everything, but I mean, yeah, a lot of our boosts we're doing were just like $45 over 3 days for a post.
$15 a day. Yeah.
We would see like really good return on that, honestly, after we experimented some and got more efficient. Also with boosting, we actually didn't realize how vital it was at the beginning because of this other thing that was happening with the account.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were 3 weeks in. We're at the halfway point, right? We launched the account. We're halfway between launch and milestone, the 6-week goal. And we go viral. Da-da-da!
Viral?
Yes! Our Kardashian meme took off. It's just like Kim talking on the phone and Chloe's feeding her lines. And what's the caption? It's like, when work bestie helps you like craft an email and make sick points.
Yeah.
And it got, by the end of the 6 weeks, 1.8 million plays.
I would say that's viral, yeah.
Well, especially for us. We were getting like a couple hundred plays at that point still on every video. So this one just like took off and people loved it. And it was one of those comment sections where it's just people adding other people, presumably coworkers.
Right. Like, yes, you're the work bestie who's
Yeah.
helping me craft the sick points. Like,
Like, yes, like us with our
Yeah.
emails, girl. Like,
Yeah.
it was awesome.
and I mean, it's higher now, right? Didn't we hit 2 million on that for sure?
Yeah, spoiler
Yeah.
alert, in our second 6-week period, we went viral again. Not nearly to the same extent, but it had like a resurgence, which is, we'll talk more about it later, but that's a very interesting topic. And it was like a major driving force behind a lot of our growth. But to Tatiana's point, it kind of muddied the waters with tracking how we were doing with boosting, because so many impressions and so many followers were coming from this meme that went viral, that when you check in the settings and the insights and it's like, oh, this percentage of followers came from boosting, it's like, okay, that's not as high as maybe I thought it was. But like the viral meme just kind of put everything off tilt a little bit.
It was like skewing all of our metrics.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We couldn't see exactly how many followers were coming from. We could just see how many followers we got like total.
And we never boosted the viral meme. We just
Yeah.
let it be purely organic.
Yeah.
I don't think boosting would have done anything for it, honestly.
Some other things that we accomplished in our first 6 weeks is we did a collab post with a larger account that I had a connection to, and that kind of gave us a boost in traffic. We also started building out our organic social dashboard.
Yes.
Which we've done some organic social dashboards in the past, but they were of a much smaller scale. And this one we were really focusing in on how to make it like as insightful as possible.
Well, it's super custom.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's super custom.
Like we can filter by content pillar. And then
Yeah.
after a while we were like, but there's different types of trends. Like there's trending concepts versus trending audios. Was this acting on a trending concept or trending audio? So we've added like so many granular things to filter by.
Yeah, and we're adding stuff still,
Yes.
and like getting even more great like visualizations to see kind of like where things are going. Like maybe it did better in impressions but less in engagement, and like then kind of comparing those two things and then seeing how that performs. Like, is it overall stronger than like a different thing, which is like all very vague, but the point is to say that we are working on this like really, really cool dashboard to try and do these like data-driven insights. And it's been really cool, and now we're actually in talks with the client about like providing a more in-depth custom organic social dashboard. So it's, you know, developing this practice is just, you know, touching other disciplines as well, and we're all getting to learn from it. Which is awesome.
Yeah, it's very important to have a dashboard like that, especially to follow along with trends. And like you said, we are a very data-driven company, so even on the surface level, if something is humor-based, there's always a story behind it to keep pushing it.
Especially, when you get into like all the original content we've scripted, there's like hooks, and you have to catch attention within the first 3 seconds, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
There's so much to analyze. Like, it's not just being funny. There's still so much to analyze.
Have you noticed any patterns or big kind of takeaways so far?
Memes and trends will always get the most impressions, but not necessarily the most engagement.
Yeah, so we had a great time talking about this. We are going to pause now at the end of part 1. This was the first 6 weeks of Not Your Average Marketer. We talked about how we got started, how we got kicked off, our little like boosting smattering going viral with our Kim Kardashian meme.
Mm-hmm.
And in part 2, we're going to cover more of the learnings we got like long term and like what's next for us.
Right. So season 1, first 6 weeks was the season of growth. Season 2, the second 6 weeks was a season of learning. So it'll be just a blink for you, but we'll see you soon.
Until then, see you next time at
The Roundtable.